Let's get on with the show, guys. Today, our guest has been recommended to us. Our guest is Joan Frew. Joan is a spiritual medium, psychic, intuitive, and mentor. Joan has worked throughout Scotland, England, and internationally too. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Joan to the show. Hi, Joan. Thank you for joining us on Spiritual Talk.
Hello, Paul. It's lovely to meet you, and thank you for inviting me along.
It's funny times. Ladies and gentlemen, I've just had 2 bloopers before we even started. So we've got it right. We're here and we're live. And it's good to be here. Joan, on Spiritual Talk, we always talk about the journey into mediumship and how that was for you and what triggered that. Could you tell us a little bit about your past and how you become a medium?
Yeah, absolutely. I had quite a stressful year of about 14 years ago, and I thought I was going on a holiday with a friend, and I thought I was going to a place where they did massages and reflexology and all of this, and it actually turned out I was going to the Scottish Spiritual College for a week. I should have read the small print, except there wasn't any. And I went to Stirling University, where the Scottish Spiritual College had been running an annual retreat every year. And I went along, and literally my eyes were opened. I had not done anything knowingly spiritual prior to that. But it was just suddenly something went click and I could do it. And that was it. And I came away from there completely transformed and discovering a whole parallel world that runs along beside the non-spooky stuff, shall we say.
Yeah.
And that was my introduction. And it just snowballed from there. I learned about healing. I learned about mediumship. I learned about crystals. I learned about every aspect that I could of spiritual development or anything esoteric. I read hundreds upon hundreds of books. I went on courses. I developed myself. I kept working at it. And lo and behold, here we are today, chatting to you. And my progress was starting off as I never thought I was going to do mediumship. It was always the healing that I was really interested in, which is quite often the case with a lot of people. And then I started doing mediumship and discovered I was quite good at it. And again, snowballed from there, and then went on to do teaching. And like a lot of people, I went to the Arthur Findlay College down in Stansted. And on a course down there, I was taught by a fabulous medium called Thelma Francis, who also happened to be from Scotland and came from Edinburgh. And during one of the exercises we were doing, she asked me to help her because they were short in the class. It was one short. So I ended up helping Thelma, and she said to me, yes, you're going to teach, but not yet. You're not ready. And I just sort of looked at her thinking, yeah, I don't think so. But Thelma being Thelma, she was absolutely right. And I ended up teach spiritual development, and again, all aspects of it. I teach about crystals. I've been doing that for years. I teach at the Arthur Conan Doyle Centre in Edinburgh. So yes, big seeds or little seeds, just blossomed and kept blossoming. And as I say, here I am today.
Yeah, well, what a wonderful story. But what did you have family around you? How did they feel about, suddenly your way?
No one in my family, to my knowledge. To be fair, I always thought my mother, there's a fantastic Scottish word called fey, as in F-E-Y or sometimes F-A-E, which refers more to the fairies. But always thought she was a little bit like that. But it was never anything that was discussed. I was brought up in a Catholic household, went to church on a Sunday. So I always had a belief in, there was more after life. But I had never experienced a mediumship message or anything like that. And like most people, had gone maybe for a reading and actually had gone for a couple, and my mum went along as well. But that was the extent of it. It wasn't anything more than that. And I have to say, my wonderful children have ribbed me about it ever since and have kept me very grounded. as children do.
Absolutely.
So yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's a difficult transition, though, to suddenly to go down this route. And it's a lonely one at times when, especially, nobody in your family talks about it or is involved in it. It can be quite a difficult road.
Yeah, that's actually, you've hit the nail on the head. I think it's a difficult road, even if you have spiritual people around you in terms of family members or friends or aunts and uncles or anything like that. But for me, I literally knew nothing. I knew absolutely nothing. So it was a massive learning curve and a very steep one. I was fortunate that at the very start, I had a couple of people who really helped me. And looking back, I can actually reflect that these people were put on my path specifically for that purpose. Even my friend Liz, who took me to the Scottish Spiritualist College, I only worked with her for a very short period of time. And I do believe she was like an angel coming in just to get me to where I was supposed to be. Sorry?
I was going to say, she told you was booked to go on a holiday with massages and you end up at the spiritual college.
Yeah, I didn't listen. Yeah. But I am eternally grateful to her because she's opened up a wonderful world to me. And also, the thing about coming to spiritualism, everybody thinks it's about giving a message, and it's absolutely not. And not everyone should be a medium, and nor should you want to be. I think sometimes mediumship's held up as the pinnacle, and it absolutely is not. There's so much more within joining that spiritualist movement. And it's the personal growth that you go through and the personal realization that, take your ego and fling it away, because it will be flung away for you if you resist. And you really come out the other end the same person, but with a different understanding, shall we say. And you learn to finally let go of the stuff that used to get to you or different things. And I'm not saying I'm a saint by any manner of means. I get stressed, I get annoyed, I can get frustrated. But generally my take on life is it's a blessing, it's a gift, and it's ours to be enjoyed. And if you are unhappy, then make small changes. Make small changes, because sometimes the big changes are too much. So make the small changes. And once you make those, the bigger ones come along. But the universe is always talking to us. We're just listening.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know I said at the start of the show about it's difficult in terms of a lonely path sometimes, but when it starts to unfold, it's also a blessing and a motivation. And it brings through a knowledge of there is no death, so to speak. There's physical death, but there is no death. The soul is eternal. So we, as mediums, we start to rejoice in this fact, and we feel, we walk around happy and glowing, but we are surrounded by people that don't have the same belief or understanding. And sometimes they don't always understand why we're so excited about this, especially at the beginning of our journey, Joan. I know I got on people's nerves at the beginning. I would talk too much about it. Did you have the same experience?
Yes and no. In that, yes, I was so excited. I was probably in fact, I made the statement that I was at Hogwarts. It was just, I'm off to divination, and off you went. And that's what it was like. But on the other hand, I had the juxtaposition where I worked in social work for 20 years. So I had a very serious job, shall we say. So I very much kept them separate. So people that I worked with did not know what I was doing or what I did. And even when I left, my colleagues didn't know what job I was going to be doing outside of leaving work. So yes, I very much kept it separate, because I never wanted anyone to see that decisions I made were airy-fairy or not relevant. So I very much kept my private and my working life completely separate.
Yeah.
And I think boundaries are very important.
Yes.
I think they're very important in your mediumship as well. So for me, my standard when I started working was I wanted to bring the same integrity, the same responsibility, and the same work ethic to my mediumship or spiritualism as I did to my working life. So for me, I took what I did very seriously, but didn't really, or tried not to take myself too seriously, because you do end up having a good laugh at yourself at times.
Yes, absolutely.
So yes.
Absolutely. But also spirit will bring you down. And I think it's really important there is this thing, especially when we start to become more aware. How do we then, well, we should be always humble, but that comes with growth as well. And sometimes it's a special feeling connecting to loved ones. There is an element of magic to it as well. But then you live in such a closed down reality life, if you like. Most people are not at the same level of you. It can be difficult to navigate that. So from a negative sense, I mean, I always felt, Joan, that I had to prove myself, and I shouldn't be that way. I shouldn't. I've always gone for. I've always asked for evidence. I try to bring through names in my delivery, and I know there's something within me that's trying to prove this. Look, listen, I've got this. I know what's happening here. I feel the spirit. I know life continues. But for a lot of people, they're like, yeah, but I'm not in your head. I'm not having your experience. I don't walk in your shoes. For you, was that very similar? Do you feel that, or have you got a different way of dealing with that?
For me, I think what you're saying about, trying to further evidence the evidence, if you see what I mean. I think that's important. And I think that stems from we're working with the discarnate, so nobody else knows or sees what we are doing or how we get our information. So you are working on different levels when you're working. I know. So I'm very much, all my clairs, I use them all, and I'm very lucky that that's developed over time. But sometimes it can be very quick as well. But what you're wanting to do to someone, first of all, is absolutely reassure them that, look, I'm really normal. I go about my life, I don't walk about with a magic cloak on or anything like that. I just go to the shops like everybody else. So you have to be normal in it, because I think the biggest thing with everyone else, or sometimes with people who are coming to you, I don't mean everyone else, but is they're afraid. They have the ghost stories or the spooky bits, whereas you learn to overcome those fears, and you learn not to be afraid of what you cannot see, and you learn to trust in it and build that relationship. But that is where our blessing comes from, is that we work at that, we build that relationship. But by no means are we special. We're just ordinary people doing something that actually, every communication is a miracle with the spirit world, and every piece of evidence we bring through can be completely transformative for someone. Because although I said at the beginning, mediumship is not everything, the one thing about mediumship that it should always be is healing. It should bring upliftment. It should bring joy. It should bring comfort. And it should also bring laughter.
Yeah.
So when I set my bar years ago, I said that, I wanted to have humour in my messages. And that was probably my first mistake, because I cannot sing for toffee. And I often get songs and I sometimes have to sing them. So pity the poor people that have to listen to me singing the song.
I have literally just written down music to prompt me, because I get a lot of songs in my evidence, and and oh gosh, I do try to sing, but not too well. But it makes people laugh, and I think that's the point, isn't it?
Of course it is. In fact, one of the most you don't remember your messages. You don't. You do too many. But now and again, you get one that just literally blows you out the water. As a medium, it blows me out the water. And I did a dem earlier this year online for the Arthur Conan Doyle Centre. And as I was finishing up, and I'd given the evidence and all the different things, and I said that the woman had lived to a great age, and she showed me lots of stuff, the woman in spirit. And then all of a sudden, I said, I'm just hearing a song. I said, 99 red balloons. I said, she was given 99. And the recipient just went, oh, like this, and drew back. And she said, we gave her 99 red balloons for her 99th birthday. Just went, my work here is done.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was just, and the amount of people who messaged me and said, if anyone ever doubted spirit, having just heard that piece of evidence, you couldn't doubt it. So yeah, and there are other things. I mean, there's been evidence that has been so emotive. Now, as mediums, we shouldn't be crying in front of the recipient, but sometimes when spirit draws so close and they put that emotion on you, that love that they are feeling for the person, and I think when that comes through and it literally fills you up, you're trying to convey that emotion to the recipient and to say, there's so much love coming through for you, not in a flippant way, as in, take the love from spirit, but that emotional feeling that has actually been shared with you as a gift, and you have to convey that to the recipient.
Yeah, Joan, that again, we must be in tune on this interview, because that's something that I wanted to talk about. How do you convey? Now, I'm the same. Sometimes you feel that overwhelming love and connection, and there's a part of me that wish I could express this. How can I put into words the expression of their love that I'm feeling? And I don't think you can.
Well, I disagree. So one of the things when I teach my students, I will say, you learn the language. You learn to convey what you're feeling. Now, generally people are fairly repressed in their emotions. We're not exuberant. We don't have the passion of some countries, especially the British. It's always that stiff upper lip and things like that. So you're conveying something that might be alien to you. But the other thing is, you might be conveying an emotion that is actually alien to you as a medium, because you may not have experienced that depth of love. You may not have experienced that. So your responsibility is then to say, I have to make you aware that this love is coming to you. It is filling me up. I hope you can feel it, because it is deeply beautiful. So it's finding the language around what you are experiencing. And once you free yourself up, because the thing is, we are the voice of spirit, and without us, spirit has no voice. So we're the bit in the middle.
Absolutely. So what I was going to say, and you kind of gone on to it again, we're definitely in tune with this interview. The holy grail has got to be when the person sitting in front of you feels it too. And it's not specifically what you say, but you've managed to convey. So I wonder, the emotion that I'm feeling, I'm hoping on some level that I can transmit that in a non-verbal way. I don't know. But
you honour the emotion.
Yeah, I was going to say, I do worry about that. But then that's why I worry that I can't convey as I feel it with my words alone, if that makes sense.
I think you might be doubting yourself. So what I would say to you is, if you were a student of mine, I would say to you, acknowledge the emotion, acknowledge the feeling. Yeah. Once you have said it, then you will find that it will slightly subside a little bit, so that you can actually articulate what you're experiencing, but you have to allow it to touch you. And to do that, you come to mediumship with an open heart.
Yeah.
And you don't let your mind lead you. You let your soul lead you. And then the person, the recipient, will feel it on a soul level. Excuse me. It will touch them in some way. It will touch them in some way. You just have to trust that process, because we're the space in between, because we go to the space in between to connect, but we are also that space in between from spirit to the recipient as well.
You're the first person that's ever mentioned that space in between. And one of the first things my guide said to me about God, everything is God, all things are God, even the space in between. And that's how they left it. That was their first quote to me. And you're the first person to talk about it. I've heard it been said with someone who had a near-death experience, but never from the mouth of a medium. Now, it is difficult because everybody works in a different way. Some of us, coming on these podcasts, opening up, it can be difficult for people because we do have this thing where we worry about being judged. But I feel that the spiritual community should be a community. We should be there helping each other to help to get the best of all of us, to help get the messages and connections out to people to help. So
you said something earlier that I would like to go back to.
Yeah, sure.
How do you express something? The thing is, we often feel we're not good enough. But that's our judgment of ourselves.
Yeah.
But Spirit, by choosing us and allowing us to work with them, has already said, you are good enough.
Yeah.
And how you work is good enough. And I teach my students the SAS. Surrender, allow, show me.
Surrender.
You can write that down. It's okay.
I am writing that down. I'm taking notes, Joan.
Love it. Surrender, allow, show me.
I think that's beautiful. That's great.
Yeah. So when you surrender to Spirit, you get your head out the road, you get your ego, you shift yourself to the side, you surrender. You consciously say, I let go. Because the thing is, we always talk about trust. Oh yes, I trust Spirit. But do we?
Yeah.
Do we really? Because the whole thing is, we have to trust ourselves. And that's where we have the difficulty.
Yeah. And so many of us, so many people, from all levels, all abilities, it's a wide range. There is this level of trust as well that kind of links in with doubt as well. So getting to trust Spirit and allowing them to take control. So for an example, friends of mine at the lovely Snettisham Church, I'm going to say hi, big shout out to the Snettisham Church. I was doing a Saturday evening demonstration with another medium, Bobby. Hi, Bobby. And I was giving a message to somebody. And when you truly, and this is the first time it's ever happened to me. So there is a particular way in working. You bring forth the evidence and there's a message. And then I always leave that love of the person, the connection with that person, to go on to the next person that was coming through. Does that make sense? There is a process, isn't there?
So everyone works differently. And when Spirit's communicating with us, for me, it's like a surge of energy comes in. As I say, everybody's different. And I speak very quickly because the information's coming so quickly to me. But you've learned over the years, I've learned over the years, just to let go and to put Joan Frew over to the other side of the room and just allow Spirit to come through me, because it's their voice that the recipient wants to hear. They don't want to hear Joan Frew. They want to hear Spirit, and you have to allow that. Now, a lot of people, when you say surrender, allow or trust them, they think they're going to lose something of themselves. You don't. You're still there. You're still present, but you're allowing that spiritual energy to flow. And the better you allow it to flow, the better your mediumship, the stronger your link, and the more trust and the more, I was going to say confidence, but you trust in that process, but you trust in yourself.
Absolutely.
So it flows
Absolutely.
better.
I'm sorry. Yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry we lost you on that link. I was just going to explain as well what happened at Snettisham Church. It was a really interesting experience because I was coming to a lady on the left-hand side of the congregation or the audience, and I was delivering a message. I brought her grandfather and I believe an uncle, and then all of a sudden, and I said, I've got a young man here. I know he passed, a very young man. He died. I can't remember what I said, but all of a sudden, I turned to this woman and said, I have your son here. And I'm so sorry. I hadn't even finished my other message. Yet when I turned to this lady, she said, it's okay. You have my son. And I've never had, I felt like spirit moved me to that person. I was kind of like, I felt a little bit out of control because I wasn't doing my usual finish the message, go to the next person. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But that's you allowing and also shifting in a sense, in that you're having a shift and you're trusting more. So for example, I'll give you an example. If I'm working on Zoom and I can have like 100 faces in front of me, particularly when it was during lockdown. So
yeah,
the first time I went on, and I'd watched people do it, and I thought, I don't think this is going to work for me because I generally know who I'm going to. So I sat with a piece of paper and I scanned all the pages and I felt who I was drawn to and I chose the names, and I worked that way on Zoom. And I work that way in real life as well. Occasionally there's like, maybe when it comes to the end of the evening, I might say, oh, I don't know who my next one's for, so I'll just allow it to come through. But what I have found working that way is that spirit directs you. It's almost like there's a power surge, the energy surge, but they're directing you where you have to go. So the more you surrender with that, the better it is. And I find that the link can be really quite strong, and it almost like it holds you there until you've delivered what they want to convey.
Absolutely. It's either that, Joan, or they're fed up with me over somewhere else and they push me over. I can hear my guy going, for heaven's sake, will he listen? Push him over. Go on, just push him, you know? So I can just imagine my guides. And that's another thing, talking about guides and our connections that we have. Do you know your guides?
Yes.
And how did that come through? Because everyone wants to know who their guide is.
Right. I think you get the ego part of it. You think, oh, I want to know who my guide is because I want somebody rich and famous, that type thing. Yeah. Actually, your guide's working with you from the very beginning. They're giving you information. You just don't know who it is, but you're getting information. So I was getting things, and at that point, I didn't know who it was. My first guide actually came through very quickly, and I worked with them for a long time, and they've sort of stepped back, but they do pop up occasionally. But then I kept getting something else, and I didn't know enough at that point to know who it was, and that only came later. So sometimes your perhaps lack of knowledge might limit who you, not limit who you're working with, but limit your understanding of who you're working with and how they'll work with you. So, read, for any aspiring mediums out there, read, learn. And also, if something's not working for you, or you're maybe being taught by someone that you've outgrown or you don't resonate with, move on. Yeah. Because we outgrow some of our teachers. And I say that to my students as well. Find the right fit, because you have to resonate with whoever's teaching you. Because as you progress in your spiritual life, so you need perhaps other types of mentoring or a different viewpoint. And if it doesn't resonate with you, don't stick with it. It's got to make your soul sing. You've got to enjoy what you do. It's got to make you happy.
Yeah. Now,
so it's really important to find the right person.
I agree with that, but I also agree. I don't mean to be controversial. Do we rely too much on teachers? Do we, rather than working with our connection with spirit more, allowing them to be our teachers?
Well, I think there's a bit of both. I think there's a bit of both. But what you don't want to be is your teacher. You don't want to be a clone. And sometimes you can look at someone and you know exactly who's taught them because they deliver in the same way, they say the same phrases. And actually, the repetition of phrases is kind of one of my bugbears, because you have to be you in your mediumship, because that's who Spirit's working with. They're working with you, the individual. So they want you to be genuine in your mediumship. Yes. They want your personality. They want who you are. They don't want you to be your mentor, shall we say. I don't want to use any names because I've gone to lots of people over the years, and some I liked for a wee while, and then you kind of think, no, I want more, and some I've absolutely loved. And to be fair, most of them have been marvellous. I think Spirit definitely guides you, but you have choice.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing we forget, we have choice.
Yeah.
But always be yourself in your mediumship.
No, but is there a thing where we can do too much as well? We can do too much mediumship. We can.
Absolutely. So, again, it sounds as I'll keep saying that to my students, but these are things I've been saying for years. You need a break from mediumship. We're here to have a human experience.
Yeah.
We're humans first. So we have another life, and Spirit completely understands that.
Yeah.
They know that. So if you have a day where you think, oh, I'm tired, or I don't want to do that, or I need a break, that is okay, because you have to fill yourself up. So for me, so I produce a newsletter monthly, and different things. So I take a break in the summer, and I don't work. I don't teach. I occasionally have clients coming to me for readings during the summer, but I tend to limit it. I don't do a lot of therapies because I do healing. So I don't do a lot because I have to fill myself back up. I have to go away and be normal and clear my head and fill myself up. So I go away to places for me that fill me up. I travel around Scotland because I like lonely places. I go to stone circles. I do normal things like this. And I read normal books. I read for pleasure as opposed to reading to develop myself even further, or to, become more of an expert, or, well, maybe not expert, but, to become more knowledgeable. So I read books for pleasure. I will catch up with friends. I will have a glass of wine, things that I don't do when I'm working. And you need that normality, because like any vocation or job in life, you can get tired of it. You can get fed up of it. And you're no use to anyone if your cup is only half full. And we all have a life outside of this. We have family, we have friends, we have injuries, we have ill health, and mediums, spiritual people, are the worst in the world at looking after themselves.
That is absolutely true.
We never practice what we preach.
Yeah. That's absolutely true. There is some people talk about mediums craving sugar after their work. I don't know if that's true or not.
Well, I think there's certainly like, if you think of when a medium goes to do a dem, there's always the cup of tea and the sandwich afterwards, because generally the medium has starved themselves before they've came. Not because, but because they need the energy within their body to be utilised spiritually, as opposed to trying to digest the steak and chips that they had half an hour before they left the house.
Yeah.
Most mediums, if I'm working, I have a bigger lunch and I don't eat before I go out.
Me too.
Because your body's busy doing other things, so you need that energy. So afterwards you are generally quite peckish. But don't go for the sugar, because what you're wanting to do is hydrate. So when you're working with energy, your body gets hydrated. So you need to use water. Water is also very grounding as well. So it helps you come down. But you also need something to bring you back down and to get out of the space in between where you've been working and to come back in here, especially before you go out and drive a big vehicle. So it's a bit like if someone comes to me for a treatment, I talk to them before the treatment, but afterwards I give them a cup of herbal tea, I give them a biscuit, and I talk to them for 10 minutes before they leave, because I want to make sure they're fully back, present in their body before they get into a powerful vehicle and drive off.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a real thing. And from my experience, and again, a conversation that I had with a friend of mine who's also a working medium, I know of another medium that used to starve themselves for a couple of days. I think that can be counterproductive. But then I've heard of some of the old school mediums. They used to have steak and chips about an hour before. One guy would have a pint of beer. He'd have a pint of beer or a glass of red wine. I'm thinking maybe I'm doing it wrong. I don't know, but I don't. I'm like you. I generally I would eat. I'd have a larger lunch about 2-3 o'clock. And then maybe, I don't know, something light, like a biscuit or something before I work. So I wouldn't have it like a heavy dinner. But does it affect the mediumship if the body is, like you said? Because I've seen a guy, he was invited to a demonstration. He had a carvery before he started. He had his carvery, he had his put in. Then he got up and started working. I'm like, oh, hats off to you.
Yeah, I think it really depends on the individual. Darts players were notorious for having a pint while they used to play darts. Snooker players the same. But the world has moved on now, and you don't see them doing that. They take better care of their health because they want to live longer. So I think it's about actually looking after your body and ensuring that you're the healthy vehicle that you can be. So going to the chap who didn't eat for a few days, well, I don't think that's very good for you either. Just eating something lighter or eating earlier before you work. But it's purely on a digestive and energetic level. For me, things like if I'm going to be working at all, if I'm going out anywhere, I will not drink alcohol. That's a personal choice. But for me, I work better when I have more energy. I'm not sluggish. And it's all energy. So it's just about how you want to work. It's personal choice. But I think we're much more aware of our bodies and how it works and trying to be as healthy as possible.
I agree. And I think there needs to be a level of fitness as well, because that helps as well. I personally think, if we're suffering with ailments, and it does have an effect. But then on the other hand, Joan, I've seen people that have, there was a great story with Craig Morris, and he was talking about the lovely late Colin Fry, that on his last tour, he was very poorly, and he was fighting cancer. And he said to Craig, I'm not going to get up, and I just want to do a couple of messages and sit down. But he got up and did 45 minutes without stopping, and then he didn't realise what had happened. But the presence of spirit had stepped through. But I think you're right. It is about getting that balance. Joe, can we talk about from a beginner's point of view, because I tried to create this podcast to be a service to people that are developing or opening. Is there anything that you could change about the early years in your development that you think could be done in a different way? Or
yeah, that's a good question. What I would change is do not believe everything you're told.
Okay.
Question it. Don't lose your sense of reality when you come into mediumship. Ask questions, and don't take a teacher's or a friend who's been in it for years or anything like that as absolute gospel. Find your own way, but question. Ask questions. And if somebody makes a platitude or a statement, say, well, where did that come from? You have to be able to pick things apart. You have to be able to know what you're doing and why you're doing it and who you're working with. And just as we've been talking about, understanding the energy that you're working for. Colin Fry was given the energy by spirit to do what he had to do. He was of service to the spirit world. And that's what I would say to anyone coming to it. We're here to be of service. And if you ever want to know in each day what your purpose is or what your path is, just send up that thought to the spirit world. Allow me to be of service today, and watch what happens. There will always be someone you meet, something happens, and I can guarantee it, honestly, I can guarantee it. If you say, allow me to be of service, something or someone will be put in your path where you're of service to the spirit world, because that's what we're here for. We're not here to be of service to ourselves. We're here to be of service to the spirit world.
It's interesting. We had this very discussion on Monday evening with the group that I sit with. And what is your motivation for wanting to do mediumship? And I think we also miss a trick here, because mediumship is just a form of awareness that we're opening a doorway to a whole new world. But there is this, and when you said service, that resonates with me, because I think we forget that we are of service. So how, a lot of people don't seem to think that. All I hear is things like, oh, I'd love to be able to do what you do. Yeah, but it's not an easy road. It has its, good and bad. It can be very tiring. It's very rewarding, don't get me wrong. And it's an honor and a privilege. But also that there is this motivation. And yes, I believe in a creator, a divine aspect of the universe. However your God is, there is something. And I believe in this with all my heart. And I've come across that, Joan, through no religious upbringing. I've found this within my own mediumship and my own development and my own awareness. But then understanding that we're a part of the bigger picture, we're all connected, is a really difficult aspect for some people. So sometimes it's about getting out of the ego and understanding. I love that quote about how can I be of service today, because I feel a lot of us go through life and we incarnate, we don't actually know what we're here for to do. I've heard people say, oh, I'd like to do this. What is it we're here for? How can we grow? What is our purpose? These are big questions.
Okay. Well, my thoughts are, your purpose is whatever you're doing today. And if you want to do something different, make small changes.
Yeah.
Your purpose is whatever you're doing until you decide to do something different.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. You're always in the right place, apparently.
Always, because there will be learning, even though you don't know what it is. There will be an experience. There will be something maybe getting triggered for you that you have to finally let go of and move forward. And I know I might be making it very simplified, and I'm not saying this because it's easy. I'm saying this because it's hard. But one of the things that you asked me about mediums or someone coming into it, boundaries. Learn boundaries. Learn to say no. We, as mediums, as spiritualists, we are not on 100% of the time. We have a life. And if you cannot say no, then you're no use to yourself. Yeah. And you're certainly not of any use to the spirit world as well. So you have to have boundaries. You have to say, no, not today, or this isn't a good time. You have to take that break. You have to look after yourself. You have to eat well. You have to do something that gives you joy. Like I go swimming early in the morning, and sets me up for the day. It's my headspace. It's good for me. I do that. And I'm really blessed. I have a good life, but I work at having a good life. It doesn't just, oh, look, parachute in. You have to work at having that good life. And I'm very blessed to have a good life.
Yeah, and that's really important. But
I wouldn't have had it without it.
But do you think that's going to say that the journey of boundaries is a journey? Because so many people, again, they just want to help and they want to, and that's when it can become detrimental, because they give themselves too much, they get burnout. And so many mediums that I've spoken to get burnout.
Yeah. But the thing is, we're here to help. We're not here to rescue. And people always have free choice. So if someone comes to me for a reading, You know, I can suggest something, but ultimately that choice is theirs, and I have to let go of the outcome because it's not my outcome. So if someone comes to you for advice or for whatever, you can give it, but they don't have to take it.
Yeah.
And you have to let go of that outcome because it's not your life and you're not in control.
Yeah.
So you have to let go of that.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Joan, thank you for that. Can we talk about bugbears? What is there within the spiritualist movement, or what mediums do, and it's not a criticism. We don't, we can kind of do it in a roundabout way.
Yeah, I'm trying to sort of think of things. Bugbears. I think sometimes the platitudes that, like, as I said earlier, some mediums, not all, depending on who they've been taught by, they say the same things, but actually I get my students to unpick it. So I will go and watch a deme, and maybe I shouldn't say this because then nobody will let me go to a deme. I watch the medium and I observe them and see what they're getting, and have a little conversation with spirit and sort of think. I'm not linking into their link. That's a no-no. That's an absolute. Oh, I know what I hate. When you get the person in the front row opening their hands like this. Oh, I'm giving the medium energy.
Yeah.
No, sorry. No. I get mine from whoever's working with me. That's where I get my energy, in that space in between. But thank you for your kindness.
Yeah.
But no, so that would be a bugbear.
That's quite.
So yeah, things like that. You have to unpick the platitudes. You have to unpick the sayings that everybody says.
Yeah.
I probably say them as well, but you have to take them apart and think, actually, does that make sense?
Can I share one of my favourites?
Yeah, go on.
So my favourite, and I've done this myself, and I'm like, oh my God. I've got your dad here. I know he had breathing problems at the end. I'm so sorry, but of course he did. I love that.
Yeah.
And I know it's around the chest there. I'm like, no, that's. So sorry, guys. I've done it myself, and I realise what I'm saying. But we can become too sensitive to the recipient that we end up then kind of not saying what we're getting when we should be a little bit more direct. But then people always worry in case they offend that person if we get it wrong.
Yeah. I think sometimes, though, we can be too quick. So, they're taking my attention to my chest area here. So we're giving that because that's what we're getting. But then that we should follow with, right, okay, I'm feeling that they had bronchial issues. Actually, they had problems with their glands. And I really feel that latterly in life, they struggled to breathe. They were on an oxygen mask. They passed in a hospital they're making me aware of. They were taken there in an ambulance. It was blue lights flashing. So that's where you want to go with your message. You start with that piece, but you don't stop there. You continue with the story that Spirit is giving you. But you have your starter for 10, so to speak, but there's a whole other story comes after that. And you have to allow that to come through you. You don't just say, oh, they're taking me to the chest area. Oh, and by the way, there was a brother called Bob. Oh, no, I think it was Bill, or was it Robert? Oh, that's, when they're doing lots of, and I give names, and I give dates and months and things like that. But I remember one medium used to say, oh, in the month of January, March, April, and February, and they were all, well, we could all take all the months. But when you give a date, if you're going to give a month, give the month. Get why it's there. Is it a birthday? Is it a passing? Is there an anniversary? Is there a wedding coming up? Because if there's a wedding coming up, Spirit will be there toasting whoever's getting married. Because I've had that a few times where they make you aware of it. So yeah, you have to give the story. This is a person who lived and breathed and had a life. They are still existing and having another experience in a different universe, but they still want you to know, I'm still here for the good times and the tough times, and I'm here.
And that's beautiful. But I have heard that too, where people, I'm getting the month of April and June for a passing, birth, or an anniversary. I'm like, if you're going to
Yeah,
give
which
that, get the date, get the details, rather than just going for that. I think it's, forgive me guys if I'm not trying to offend mediums, it is a very difficult thing to get up on platform, and you
absolutely,
have done amazing to get to do that. All I would say is trust
yeah,
and go deeper.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's an,
and especially when you're starting.
yeah.
When you're starting, you don't have that confidence. And the thing is, we all start in primary one. It takes a long time for us to graduate, if we ever do. So we do have to work up the primaries. So if you look at when you're developing as a medium, you start in a nursery class and you're there for a couple of years. Oh, and then you go up to primary one, and then so you're constantly evolving.
Yeah.
I like using different analogies to make sense and keep it simple.
See, I think
but that's what you're doing.
I get names, I get dates. I still feel like I'm in my primary. I've been demonstrating for about 10 years. I still feel like I'm in the primary school, though. I still think there's so much to learn. There is a thing, and an old medium told me many, many years ago, Paul, how do you want to work? And I don't know if you believe in this or not, but one of the things I said to my guys, I said, look, if I'm going to work this way, I would like details. The first thing I would say, do you believe in setting what it is you would like to work or aspire to?
Well, I did in the beginning, and it certainly worked for me. I said I always have to work with integrity, and I think I do. That sounds a bit egotistical, actually, but I try to work, and be responsible. I asked for humour, which I got, and even before I do a dem, I always ask that there is healing in the dem, that there is love, laughter, and upliftment. So before I do a dem, I still set my intent, because energy follows thought.
Yes.
So as soon as you set your intent, that energy's gone out there. Yeah. But the other thing about, there was something you said there that triggered a thought for me, and I've just kind of forgotten what I was going to say, was about how we deliver things to people. That bit about we should never be flippant. I hate flippant mediums. I hate anyone being dismissive, because you have to respect spirit, and you have to respect that not only has the person in front of you taken the time to come, the person beside you has taken the time and effort to come as well. So you should never be disrespectful, because that is always someone's mother, father, child, aunt, family member, best friend. So respect them, because their relationship with that person was a relationship that was important to them. Otherwise, they wouldn't be coming through. So treat it with respect and honour that you have been given the privilege to be the medium to deliver.
Yeah, that is really powerful words, Joan. I totally agree. And again, on the flip side of that, here's the other thing. What if you get the wrong person? I've seen mediums, and this is what I think. Well, can you imagine? My dad's on the other side, and he's gone to a medium to give me a message, and the medium's gone to someone else. And I've seen it where they swap them out. And I think, I can just hear my dad going to the guide, like, he's not talking to my... Oh, makes me want to cry thinking about it. But it's just so powerful that we need to hold a level of responsibility, that we work hard in that bridge and we get in the right person. And I saw a medium recently that got about 5, 6, 7 no's, one after the other, because he was with the wrong person. Rather than going, okay, I don't think I'm with you. Let me come back. Let me review the evidence. And they should have gone through the evidence so they found the right person. Because some people will grab a message.
Absolutely.
And they will grab a message and they will send you on a different tangent. And that's wrong. You should know as a medium, this doesn't feel right. I'm sorry, I'm not with you. And then go back. But that medium didn't. He said, well, can you take this and find out and take it home? So a little bit of handbag mediumship. Not everything can be revealed.
Yeah. The medium is always in charge.
Yeah.
Not the recipient. So if I go to someone and it's happened, and I've actually gone to a medium and they've went, no, no, no. And I'll say, okay, I'm sorry, you can't take the message. I'm going to stop there and move on. And then suddenly you see their face fall because they're testing you or wanting to make you work a bit harder. But again, with Joe Public, but the thing is, you go blank. Your mind goes blank.
Yes.
So if I call it spiritual bingo. So if people put up their hand and say, oh, I can take that, I say, right, we're going to play spiritual bingo. So if you say no to the next thing, you put your hand down. So I'll give the next piece of evidence and I'll say, can you take it? No, put your hand down. And I by a process of elimination, spiritual bingo, they've put the hand down, and then you're left with who you should be working with. But the medium should feel it. You should feel that connection. You should feel that pull to that person. And that's why it's so important the recipient says yes, no, maybe. Maybe further on in the evidence, they'll go no, and that's because their mind literally has gone blank. But you should feel that connection with the recipient. That confidence, to say, well, I'm going to leave you here. Thank you very much. However, the intelligence of spirit is such that maybe you should listen into the next message because there may be something there for you. Yeah. Because when you go to a DEM, there will always be aspects of a message, a delivery that you can take, because the intelligence of spirit is such that they want to touch everyone, but they know that we have a limited time and you're working. So there'll be little bits that will resonate with you. And that's also, and that might be the bit that the person says no to, but that's the bit that's just for you. And that's the intelligence of spirit, and that's the beauty of it.
And people don't realise as well, even when they're demonstrating, they're bringing a message through, how nuanced the message is. Oh gosh, Joan, I could be here all day talking about this. Do you believe in piggybacking, where someone has just gone over and there's someone that's been over for some time? Some mediums talk about that, piggybacking. Do you think that's a thing? The only thing I can say,
it's not a phrase. To be honest, it's not a phrase I'm familiar with. So it's not a phrase I'm familiar with. So I don't feel I can answer that. But in terms of, I think sometimes you can get one person coming through, and they kind of, if they've came through before, they kind of open the door for the next person to come in. So you might start off with the grandfather, but actually it's the father who passed a fortnight ago that's wanting to come through. But it's almost like they're saying, this is okay. Because just think about it. If you were going somewhere new and unusual and you were walking into a party where there's lots of people sitting in front of you and you'd never been before, you would be nervous. So what would you do? You would want someone to come with you. You'd want a pal. So I actually don't think it's any different in the spirit world sometimes. I think sometimes they just need that little bit of confidence. And especially, I think, if they've passed recently, because I'm sure you'll be the same. You might have someone who's passed and they're not even buried.
Yeah, well,
but they have a message already. They're coming through, and then, it's sorry.
No, I was just gonna say I had an unusual experience Friday with such. It was only been 3 months, but there was 4 or 5 of the loved ones, but they weren't giving. Almost like they wasn't wanting to contact. It wasn't until then suddenly. I then felt this young man come through. He'd been over for 3 months, and his mum was in the audience. But everybody in that community had said before I got there, and said to the mother, "He's coming through tonight. He's coming through tonight." So it's almost like everyone's loved ones. I've never had it before, Joan, in my life. It was beautiful, and again, the power of spirit really just blows my mind. The intelligence of spirit, and I just love it. And this is why it's such a privilege to work with spirit. It really is.
Absolutely. But again, I hadn't heard it called just piggybacking before, but I think just sometimes, other people come through and it's almost like they're building up the energy or they're just, and then the person comes through. And sometimes I'm sure you've done this, where the whole family's coming in, and you can actually almost see them all standing, and you're like, oh, right, I've got this one and this one, and by the way, your great Auntie Bella has just shouted in, hello, I'm here, I've got my first stole on, and I'm looking all glamorous.
Can I ask you then, is that through lack of control with the one person, or is that your awareness being open? Because can I be honest, I'll say up front now, I get that 90% of my mediumship, and I have to make sure I focus, because I feel like I can be distracted with aunt coming in, or I've got this lady coming in, I get the names, and I just think, hold on. So I can be distracted by other people in the family. But it is for me, I always say, well, it's also for them, it's like not having a phone and suddenly someone gives them a phone, they've all got to share it.
Well, it's like they're all on Zoom now. They're all coming in and they want to be seen. So I think that, as I said earlier, the medium needs the discipline, and the medium's always in control. So particularly for mediums starting out, they should only be focusing on one person and one thing. And I think Spirit does that. But I think as you grow, then other people come through, but you are still the medium, you're still in control, and you can say, I'm aware there's loads of other people, but I want to stick with this person because I feel that this person is wanting to convey something to you. And you allow it to happen. And then if, say you get the grandfather or the father, but then you see the mother coming forward as well, and, they may have something, but they just want the person to know that they're there, because the person might have wanted their mother and got their father, and that can be tricky when someone comes through and the person goes, oh, that wasn't who I was wanting, and you go, oh, sorry. But the thing is, we don't get to decide. Spirit gets to decide. So again, every communication, whether it's one that the recipient wants or not, is a miracle and a gift, and should be treated as such. It's
been such a privilege talking to you, Joan. Can't thank you enough for giving up your time to come on and talk to people that watch the show. We're really starting to build up a community on Spiritual Talk. I really love it. There's two questions I'd like to ask you to finish. First of all, my nan, I was told, my mum decided to tell me after about 10 years of doing this stuff. Well, I blame my mother, and my mum's mum and dad, they were all Scottish, her side. And her mum could see. She would call it second sight. Being Scottish, do you think the Celtic connection helps you? Are you a naturally clairvoyant? Is that your main thing, or am I just clutching at straws?
No, not at all. I do think there is something. I always thought my mother was a little bit fey, but Mavis Batilla, many years ago, the great and fabulous Mavis Batilla, said to me that she very much believed that the Celts had an edge. She said there is something. And actually, even before I get into spiritualism, I told a friend of I lived overseas, and after I get into it, I went to visit my friend, and I told her what I was doing, and she said, but Joan, you've been giving me messages for years. And I was like, she said, I used to phone my sister in Canada and tell her what you told me, but I was unconscious. I wasn't aware of it. So I think there is something there. You're just not conscious of it. But yes, I do think if you look at, there's no bias, but I do think that Celtic tradition, because it's so much inherent within you, and I think we've gone away from it, and there's such a history, particularly in Scotland or even south of England or in Wales, where the other world is very present. You know, that thin place,
absolutely,
where you go to places and a definite thing, and there is a definite thing. So I think very much that Celtic part of you connects with that, and you're aware of it because it's in the very bones of you.
But is there anything you'd like to change, or is there something we're not talking about within the spiritual movement that we should be?
How fabulous it is. I think we're very good at putting other mediums down and different things, and I would like that to shift, because it's fabulous. It changes you. You have a greater understanding of who you are, why you're here, and that honestly, the world, the universe is a much bigger, better, more incredible place than we can truly realise. And especially when it comes to healing, you know, we are capable of so much with Spirit's help.
Yeah.
We can achieve incredible things, and we are all here to make a difference.
Yeah.
And we all do every day. We just don't always know it. We always think it has to come with a drum roll and exploding fireworks, but actually we do it every day.
That's beautiful. Well said. And
so spiritualism is wonderful.
I love that. And it's been something in the back of my mind. How can we grow together rather than pull each other apart? I think that's really important. It's really important.
Yeah.
Joan?
I think things like this are fabulous, because I personally think since lockdown, the world has opened up so much more to spiritualism. And I think that's been a gift. We've reached, because of things like this, Zoom, all the rest of it, we've reached people in countries we would never have communicated with. So there's a building of a bigger spiritual community. And I think that's essential. I think that's the way Spirit wants to go forward. They want that community to expand. They want that worldwide, world web connection. And I think it's growing. I think it's growing. I think it's, and I'm just hearing that song, and it's getting bigger and it's getting better, you know, and it is. It's just so that reaching out, that getting together and supporting each other and saying how fabulous you are and saying, look, you're doing a good job. You know, that is important, because we don't get that approval.
Yeah.
And that's why we're all so scared, because we don't get that approval. But Spirit would not be working with you if you were not doing a good job, because they know who you really are.
And I think education has become more accessible. I mean, and spookily enough, I had this conversation with someone today about why I do these podcasts. So I liken it to people that I grew up in Suffolk, and in Suffolk there was people, even when I was very much a young man, there was people that hadn't been out the local village that went to town once a year. And it's similar to the local spiritual community. And before lockdown, you know, you'd have your local circle, you'd live very much in the community, there's a couple of local mediums to teach. You wasn't always aware of all these other mediums and teachers and different aspects that are out there. And this is what we try to do, to try and bring it all together. And hopefully people can also learn themselves and push themselves into different directions. That's what we inspire to do. Joan, it's been an absolute pleasure interviewing you today. We can't thank you enough.
Yeah.
Again, one last
honestly, I've absolutely...
Sorry, Joan. What I want to know, what's next for you, and how can people find you? Please let people know how they can find you if they want a reading or...
Right. Okay. Well, my name's quite unusual for a start, but you can find me at www.joanfrew.co.uk. And please notice I actually had to read my website address. Secondly, the next big thing for me is finishing my book. That's the next big thing. I've been writing a book for years, so that's the next big thing. I'm teaching at the Arthur Conan Doyle Centre later in the year. If I can help anybody on their spiritual path, you know, that's what we're here to do. We're here to, while we're in primary 2 or primary 3 or whatever one we're in, we still need to help the ones in nursery coming up. So we're there to help the ones that are going to be here. For me, it's about leaving a legacy.
Yeah.
And I know that's, again, might sound very grandiose, but I don't mean that. It's about helping others. We're there to encourage. We're there to support. I hate when someone's put down. I absolutely hate it. You're there to say, great, that was fabulous. What a great question. Let me answer that. Yeah. Or whatever. Or, you know, that you did really well there. You're there to encourage and support everybody and push them on.
Yeah.
And encourage them.
Well, you're an inspiration. Thank you, Joan. It's been a privilege. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you to everybody, A, for allowing me into your homes, but for visiting me in Scotland. I live in a beautiful place called Troon, and it will be on the television very much over the next few days because of the Open Golf. It's a gorgeous place to live. And thank you to yourself, Paul. Really appreciated it. And to everybody who listens, thank you. And I hope most sincerely you can understand my Scottish accent.
Absolutely. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Beautifully. Thank you, Joan. Take care, everybody. And we'll be back again very soon with another great interview. Take care, everyone. God bless.